Salah signs to extend his stay through to 2025. The Egyptian King's signature, the crown and glory of a summer's recruitment work. I'm Clarke. Welcome to the Blood Red channel as I'm joined by the Echo's Liverpool correspondent, Paul Gorst, to discuss the finer details of Salah extending his Anfield stay, the negotiations, the incentives, and the role of Julian Ward. We're going to get into those finer details. But first of all, Gorsty, you've had some time off during the summer and I suppose have missed a large flurry of Liverpool's dealings, but here for the big one, the signing, the extension, I suppose, of Mohamed Salah's contract, finally done yesterday.
Yeah, I had a few weeks off, so missed all the furore around Sadio Mane and Darwin Núñez. But yeah, back on this week and timed it perfectly, really. Mohamed Salah stays, as he told us all yesterday, from his holiday home in Mykonos. Yeah, huge news for Liverpool. I was saying yesterday on the we did like a kind of emergency kind of podcast reacting to the news. I didn't see it happening this summer, in all honesty. Once it got to a certain point, I was just thinking maybe, Liverpool have to go into kind of overdrive at some point when the season's underway and really look to kind of dot the I's and cross the T's and do what they absolutely have to make sure that Salah stays. I didn't really see it coming during the summer months, particularly before pre-season while he's on holiday. So yeah, it's fantastic news. Liverpool sent a delegation out to Greece this week, and it was all kind of hush hush and on need to know basis and all that, and for obvious reasons, because there's a lot more that goes into it now than just kind of the announcements on the website. They're almost kind of social media campaigns of their own, aren't they, when a big signing happens now for these big clubs. So yeah, huge news. I thought it was quite cheeky the way they executed it in terms of getting his agents involved in the cryptic emojis and all that kind of stuff. And for a good hour and a half or so, heads were falling off left, right, and centre on social media, weren't they? But I think eventually, all is well that ends well, I guess. And it's just a massive statement of intent for Liverpool, because there's no one who they could have replaced Salah with. If you're looking to bring someone in his place in 12 months' time, they're not going to be as good as Mohamed Salah is in that right forward position. So they've done what they absolutely had to, and everyone's set to benefit.
Yeah, completely agree with you regarding that. And I suppose in terms of the money, the detail, it's one of those, isn't it? There is that obsession with how much is said player on, and reports are to be believed. It's £350,000 a week that Mohamed Salah will be getting as part of this new deal. Absolutely breaks through the wage structure that Liverpool have previously had in place for their highest earners. But I suppose when he's the guy at the top end of the pitch who's often putting the finishing touches to moves, I'm sure the likes of Virgil van Dijk, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Fabinho, Alisson, all of those who have signed contracts in the last 12 months will be more than happy just to see their mate Mo signing on the dotted line.
Yeah, you'd think so. Wouldn't you? Liverpool have a very tight-knit group, aren't they, as a team? You don't get the impression that there's any kind of, everyone's settled in the team. It's largely been the same team for the last 3-4 years. Maybe a few additions here and there, but still the main protagonist, obviously Salah. If you look at Van Dijk, Robertson, Trent, Alisson's been there for 4 years now, Fabinho. So I can't imagine this being a move that is going to disgruntle anyone, particularly when they've all just signed new contracts in the last 12 months. Anyway, you look back to last summer, don't you? And there was Trent, Fabinho, Alisson, Robertson, Henderson. They all signed new contracts, and the two glaring omissions from the list that Liverpool wanted to do was Salah and Mane, and look what's happened to them this summer. One's gone one direction, and the other's gone in the total opposite direction. So yeah, I don't think there'll be too many issues around Salah being the highest paid player at the club. He's the highest paid player that Liverpool have ever had now, and it centres around goal contributions, and there will be some team performance related criteria in there, because I think Liverpool, that's just how they operate. I think everyone's kind of got that in their contract. That's why Liverpool had one of the biggest wage bills in football a couple of years ago when they were winning Champions Leagues and Premier Leagues. But But it's Salah could earn upwards of £400,000 if he delivers the goals and delivers the goods. And I think the key issue behind it all is the fact that he believes that he still can. He turned 30 this month. He's no signs of slowing down, or he doesn't think that once he's in his 30s he's going to start tailing off. And the club, to their credit, agree with him. So they believe that they're firm in their belief that he's just going to continue performing as he already has for the last 5 years. So you're going to be looking at 6, 7, 8 years of this kind of level of Mohamed Salah, ideally, and then he's going to trouble some of the goal records, isn't he? It's going to be interesting to see where he ends up on that all-time list by the time he retires. I don't think he'll quite get to Ian Rush's level, but who else is there? Billy Little, Roger Hunt, Steven Gerrard's in there, isn't he? So yeah, I think that's now the individual task for Salah, is just to see how far you can get up that list, and then inevitably the points will be won, and the trophies could be won as well while he goes and scores all those goals.
I suppose it's not beyond the realms of possibility that this deal through to 2025, he'll be 33 at that time, that he could even extend his stay at Liverpool even longer. But you were saying before, and you were talking about kind of that physique that he's got, and I suppose maybe I'm reading too much into it, round the pool with his top off, kind of even showing off those muscles and the absolutely prime physique he's got. I'm very much a t-shirt on round the pool kind of guy myself. But you mentioned you weren't expecting to see this happen this summer. What was the key then? Because since December or so, we believe that negotiations had heated up between Liverpool and his agent, really trying to get this done. But there seemed to be an impasse. It's happened very quickly. What was the secret, I suppose, to unlocking that impasse?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think Mike Gordon met with Rami Abbas, who's obviously Salah's agent in Miami at the turn of the year. Salah's agent's based out in Dubai, so they met in Miami. And depending on who you speak to, actually, some say it was productive and that kind of set the ball in motion. Others have said there was a little bit of a disparity and it wasn't too fruitful in terms of a negotiation process. So I think ultimately the fact that he has signed the new deal will tell you that it probably was a little bit more on the productive side than not. And then there was emails a little bit later down the line, possibly March time. But then I think Liverpool took the kind of stance of, looking at things, I think possibly around the international break. They were looking at it, and they were still in the FA Cup. They just won the Carabao Cup and the Champions League, and the Premier League was still in sight. So I think they kind of shelved everything from there on in and just thought, well, it's all about the next 8 to 9 weeks. Let's see where we can finish in this kind of unprecedented quadruple pursuit. And, okay, they have missed out on the Premier League and the Champions League, but it was just about keeping heads down and just seeing where they ended up, and then coming up for air in the summer and taking a little bit of a wider view of things and seeing where the lay of the land was. And then ultimately that's where the breakthroughs come. It's been, very quick this week. We're going to talk about Julian Ward in a few minutes, aren't we? But he's him and his team kind of sprung into action, and that seems to be a recurring theme for Ward. Liverpool, as you say, flew a delegation out to Greece earlier this week, and Friday afternoon was the big news that everyone wanted to hear. So they've acted quickly and decisively, and that seems to be the way they work nowadays.
We'll get on to Julian Ward. Let's do it now. Could he have had? We'll explore more parts of the summer as we go on, but just as an overview, could he have had a better summer in terms of stepping in for Michael Edwards and how he's done? He's gone and identified a new first choice striking option who was one of the hottest properties around European football. He got that deal done very swiftly, very quickly. He brought forward the deal to bring in Luis Diaz in January before he'd even assumed the role of sporting director ahead of Michael Edwards leaving. And Jurgen Klopp as well being tied down to a new contract, as well as this with Salah, all before Liverpool report back for pre-season. They were the side of the big clubs who were playing latest into the season. And yet you look around, Manchester City is still looking to do business. Chelsea, I think, are yet to make a real senior signing in a statement of intent since their new ownership model took over. Manchester United are chasing around Europe for who and what they can sign, whereas Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp welcomes everyone back to the AXA training centre on Monday and probably knows the exact squad he's got to go with from day one in pre-season all the way through to the start of the season.
Yeah, that's all spot on, Guy. I think with Ward, I think possibly a little bit of apprehension amongst the fan base just because they know the name Michael Edwards. They know that without knowing too much about the role and the kind of behind the scenes things, they know that he's the guy who brings the players to the club, and his record preceded him, didn't it, with the amount of players that he's brought to Liverpool in the 6 years that he was officially sporting director. He's been at the club he was at the club for a decade. He was essentially responsible for supplying the Klopp with the squad that many championed as the best in decades at Liverpool. So I think there was some concern that Julian Ward, who was a name that not too many were familiar with, wouldn't be able to kind of continue on that trend. And I think very early on he's kind of blown that out the water, hasn't he? He's kind of taken a little bit of a soft launch into the role from the turn of the year when it became clear that Edwards was stepping away. I think he might have announced that in the October time. So he brought Diaz in, didn't he? I think Liverpool kind of made their move on the Tuesday at the end of the window, and by the Sunday, Liverpool were confirming him as their player. Gazumping Tottenham to Diaz, and then with the Núñez deal, when it became clear that Mane was moving on, Liverpool have again moved very quickly and decisively to bring him in. And a 64 million deal, it could rise to 85, which would be a club record outlay. And then now you're looking at Salah again. It's all been done very, very swiftly and very quietly. Admittedly, they've moved this week. They flew to Greece and they've got him signing on the dotted line for a big, grandiose unveiling on social media. So, in terms of his first window, it's been superb. I think the only thing you could say about it, and I don't think it's a fault on Julian Ward's part, is the fact that Sadio Mane feels that he needs a fresh challenge and he's had to leave. That is unfortunate from Liverpool's perspective because he's one of the best forwards in Europe, certainly for the second half of last season. But you can't win them all. But Liverpool, no doubt, under Ward, they are. They're in safe hands with him anyway, and I think he's already proven that in just a few short weeks, to be fair to him. So I think it's going to become a key feature of Liverpool going forward. I think where they move very quickly and decisively, and before they've wrapped up exactly what they want to do, and it's going to be exciting to see how they go forward from here.
Yeah, I think the term I'd use to sum it up, and the whole summer has been ruthlessly efficient. When Liverpool have seen the opportunity, they've struck and they've got it done. We've seen in previous summers, even I think back to kind of the likes of when they signed Kostas Tsimikas and there was bids going in for Jamal Lewis and Tsimikas or Diogo Jota. There was interest in Ismail Assar at Watford at the same time as well, whereas this time around, it kind of seems first choice option, and whether or not it was the case, first choice option, second choice option, right? You renew Salah or sell him, or renew Mane or sell him type thing. It seems as though the first option every time at the moment for Julian Ward seems to have been executed, and I say with ease, but it's looked that way from the outside. I suppose it's easy to say that when you've got one of the best managers and best squads that the club has ever had assembled.
Yeah, I think it just lies in the profile of the player you're going after. I think if you know you're looking to spend 64, 65 million on a player that could rise to a club record outlay, you want your first choice, don't you? You don't really want to be dealing with plan Bs or Cs, or you don't even want them really necessarily. You just think this is the player we want, and we are going to make sure that we bring them to the club. So similar situation with Núñez, a little bit different with Tsimikas because you're only looking to recruit I say only, but you're looking for someone who's not going to be playing every week. So you might
deputy. I always find the term backup disparaging, but a deputy to Andy Robertson.
Yeah, that's the ideal phrasing. So when you're after a deputy, you might have options A, B, and C, mightn't you? Because it's not imperative to your overall hopes. It's just something that you're looking to kind of supplement the squad with. So I think it lies in the profile of the player that you're going after, and to an extent, I think Jota fits into that as well because as you say there were a couple of other options as well. And Liverpool certainly contacted Watford over Ismail Assar 2 years ago, and Jota was the man who they brought in. So I think it does just depend on the profile. As I say, Liverpool absolutely knew that they wanted Virgil van Dijk and didn't really look anywhere else once it became clear that he was the man for them, as they have done with Darwin Núñez. So yeah, it's from a Liverpool fan's perspective, it must be heartening to know that Liverpool generally get who they want nowadays. You know, they're not. Look back 10 years or so ago, there was the likes of Willian and Henrik Mkhitaryan, and just to name two off the top of my head. Yevhen Konopolyanka, the players who they wanted, who never came to the club, and they're not missing out on targets anymore. They are getting who they want, and that is obviously down to the pull of Jurgen Klopp and what they're able to do on the pitch, but also the way they work behind the scenes as well with the worldwide network of contacts and scouts.
Right, final point then before we go. I suppose moving forward, what does this mean for Liverpool fans as well? I suppose we're not going to be staking out on Rami Abbas's Twitter page anymore, waiting for those cryptic clues as to what's going to happen with a contract for Mohamed Salah. But in terms of Salah himself, as we say, future sorted before he walks through the door on Monday. He'll get a full pre-season under his belt as well. And I suppose look to replicate his form from the first half of last season ahead of the World Cup, and then hopefully be the man who's there supercharged throughout the break to then come back and lead Liverpool to further glories. Yeah,
I think it might be a few tweet alerts turned off now for Rami, mightn't it, from Liverpool supporters. Might even be a few clicking the unfollow button, actually. I think one of the reasons Salah was able to hit the ground running so fast last season is because he got a full pre-season. I think that might have been the first year in Anfield when he didn't have to worry about playing for Egypt, or kind of rehabbing any kind of injury, which he did in 2018. He had the World Cup and he was still injured, wasn't he? So that, for me, I think Klopp mentioned it at some point. I was trying to search for when he said it, because I remember being at the Access Centre when he said it, but couldn't quite find it. But Klopp basically did attribute such a great start to the season with him having a full pre-season, and it's something that you can lay at the door of several players last season. I think Trent Alexander-Arnold hugely benefited from not going to Euros with England. So I think if it's the same again for Salah, I think if he's got his future sorted and he's there from day one of pre-season, he's there in Thailand and Singapore and Austria for the games against the Red Bull teams, I think when you see the Premier League season start in August, he's just going to come flying up the traps and be the best player in the Premier League until the World Cup in November, and then obviously everyone will reassess and reconvene and see where the lay of the land is from there. But I think Liverpool, or rather Salah, for Liverpool in the coming 3 or 4 months, I think he's going to be absolutely electric, and defenders are going to be put on notice again.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how it does play out. Well, that's it from us here on this special edition of the Blood Red podcast, looking into the finer details of that deal for Mohamed Salah, who extends his stay at Anfield through to 2025. But from myself, Guy Clarke, and Paul Gorst, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.